welcome once again to Living and Active. If you've seen my most recent post, you might be a little confused right now. I have a well-documented history of fluctuating between saying that I'm unplugging, taking a break, or whatever, and then coming into a realization that something necessary must be done. I've said what I've said in the post regarding unplugging again for an unknown amount of time. And everything in that post is absolutely factual. I didn't know how long I was going to be unplugging. Turns out that the initial period isn't going to be that long. I have one more bit of work for this channel to do before I can unplug for as long as will be beneficial to me. I am in my favorite Living and Active regalia, my mini patched denim vest, my black cowboy hat, because in many ways this can be seen as Living and Active's last ride. This is going to be a self-contained playlist, and I'm going to shoot the entire thing and upload it and edit it and all of that. And then I'm going to unplug for a while. The main content of this particular playlist is a book, or will be a book. I thought I brought it in here. Apparently I'm not as well prepared as I thought I was. Such is the nature of things. But it is a book that is an adaptation by something originally wrote by John Bunyan, the same man that wrote Pilgrim's Progress. Any of you who are familiar with the Pilgrim's Progress understand that Mr. Bunyan wrote allegory, very specific allegory, that makes it very plain what he is talking about. Obviously, Pilgrim's Progress is the discussion of an individual believer's life from initial exposure to the testimony of Scripture, through the decision of belief, taking God at His word, and then the lifelong adventures, as it were, of what the believer goes through, just as part of being a believer, as we traverse this life on our way to a country of our own, which is what we seek, which is what is promised to us. There's another bit of allegory that he wrote that is entitled Battle for Mansoul. I have a book that I recently received, and I started reading it. It is an adaptation by a woman whose name I can't remember. I will address these failings in the next video. But she adapted it, and it has gone under many names. It has been printed and republished and recirculated many times under many different names for various reasons. And what it describes is the intricacies of what's really going on. In terms of the spiritual war for man's soul. The battle for man's soul is described as an allegory as a town within the country called Universe. The town Mansoul is literally man's soul. I'm going to read that book. That's what this whole playlist is going to be about. And I will insert scriptural relevance where it becomes necessary. But before I get to reading the book, I'm going to use this introductory video to read another allegory. It's actually not even all that much of an allegory. I'm going to post the link to the transcript of this that I'm going to be reading in the description below this video. Some of you are already going to be familiar with this. As soon as I say it, you might have even heard it for yourselves if you're of a certain age, and if not, you've probably heard a reproduction of it at some point down the line. But this is Paul Harvey's If I Were the Devil from 1965. If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have 1/3 of its real estate and 4/5 of its population. But I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee, or you. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old, I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make literature exciting, so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. With promises of higher ratings, I'd have memorizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let loose, just let those run wild, until before you know it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Keep in mind, this was broadcast in 1965. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I would evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors and misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbols of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want until I'd killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what do you bet I would get? And what do you bet I could get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich? I would caution against extremes and hard work and patriotism and moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus, I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey of And That's the Rest of the Story fame was spot on the money. even 11 years before I was born. John Bunyan, let me verify this real quick, was spot on the money with his allegory. Current today, and current in his lifetime, which was from, according to Wikipedia, 1628 to 31 August 1688. I'll let you do the math. That was quite some time ago. John Bunyan wrote these works a century before this country came into being. And now, as we look at this nation's demise, we stand on, in this introductory video, the realization that truth is truth because it is timeless, because it started out as true. It has always been true, and it will always be true. And these things are true because they are what God has established and recorded and given to us as a basis for our reality and our hope. I hope that you will join me as I look for the remote in this one, probably very long, final ride of Living and Active. You can do with these things as you will, because we have free will. Just keep in mind for the next video, free will is going to become a very, very important character moving forward. I'll see you in chapter 1.